I'm not sure. Did you find out who Pip was,
She
Cynthia?
showed, she showed her face and waved.
Okay, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Heather is going to be doing the introduction and the welcome today. And Heather, I'm gonna first, Stuart, are you ready? You want to test out your camera and stuff? Okay, unmute yourself.
Okay. You hear me?
Yes.
Is this a good angle? Is this okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, okay. All right, great.
Okay, so we're hearing you and we're seeing you. And I'm going to spotlight Heather, and then we will come back to you. Do you need me to bring anything up on the screen or anything like that for your presentation?
No, I'm all fine.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to spotlight Heather. And just give me 1 minute to start the recording.
Okay.
Today we're welcoming Stuart W. Ramon Fortuné
Hello, good
to our
afternoon.
meeting. And here's a little background on little author bio on Stuart. Stuart W. Ramon Fortuné has a diverse professional background encompassing writing, business consulting, and podcasting, bringing a wealth of experience supported by a strong academic foundation. Stewart is the author of From Ibadan to Heliard, a novella that explores the historical and cultural journey from the Yoruba city of Ibadan to the vibrant steel band culture of Heliard, home of the Trinidad All Stars Steel Orchestra. This work has earned prestigious placements in Trinidad and Tobago's President's Residence Library and the esteemed Nalis Heritage Library, and it has been nominated for the 2024 Bocas Lit Fest Fiction Award. Garnering a 4.9-star rating on Amazon, the novella is widely available at major local bookstores. In addition to his literary achievements, Stewart brings over 16 years of expertise in marketing and business consulting across consumer goods, technology, and entertainment sectors. He has successfully collaborated with clients to understand their business needs, facilitated productive discussions, and led cross functional teams to achieve strategic objectives. As a founder and co host of the Big Potato podcast, Stuart is passionate about fostering entrepreneurship among younger generations. Through in depth research and analysis of diverse industries, he provides engaging discussions that inspire and educate aspiring entrepreneurs. His commitment to driving social change extends to his role as marketing director of the Tobago Writers Guild. Academically, Stewart holds an International Master of Business Development and Innovation from the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business, complemented by a Bachelor of Science in Management Studies from the University of London. Welcome, Stuart, to our little enclave of poetry and prose.
Sorry, I was just saying I should have sent you a shorter version of that.
That's okay.
Feeling sorry for you and the listeners. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Hello?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So actually, I'm so intrigued with your novella now. I'm gonna have to go to Amazon. I'm living in Canada, so I wasn't aware of it in Trinidad. But
Okay,
I
okay.
myself have been intrigued with the fact that a lot of the slaves that came from East Africa, from West Africa to
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad were of the Yoruba
Yes.
origin,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they were a very musical people, and that does account for our steel band,
Mm-hmm.
the evolution of that in
Yeah.
Trinidad.
It does.
And actually, they're very innovative people, as you well know from your own research, because when the British outlawed the hide drums, they just
Mm-hmm.
went on to the steel drums.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is a fact. And I mean, it was a journey from the tambu bamboo to the all iron, rudimentary, more rhythm section, to the ping pong, to the concave pan that we have now. So it was a whole journey. It was no, I always say, it's no one person that created the pan. It was always, I look at this guy, all right, he did something good. He put rub on his sticks. It sounded a different way. I like how it sound. Next year, I come in at them with that. I go in and add that to my arsenal, and we come in for them. And then the other people were looking around, okay, well, he added this. And everyone will be bringing their own version of the innovations. You know, and obviously the best ones will stand out and so on. It reached a point where we have a full orchestra where we could compete with any European orchestra in terms of we have the guitar pan, the cello pan, the bass, the all of the the instruments. We could recreate all those classical European pieces like the competition we had last year during the month of August, which was it was just becoming the steel pan month out of carnival, patriotism month. So they had a competition where we had you play two pieces. Each steel pan will play two pieces. A classical piece, a classical European, Mozart or Beethoven, whatever the case be. And then they also play a calypso, a traditional Trinidadian song. And when you listen to them, it's side by side, song in the same. So from that tambu bamboo, that garbage I throw away, to bring something of such quality, where it's really an orchestra of instruments. It's a full ensemble, as they would say. It's really remarkable.
Well, in 1970, I came to attend the University of New Hampshire in New England, and of course, they never saw a steel band before.
Mm-hmm.
So a steel band visited our university, and people were just blown away by it. They played a lot of classical and songs that the North American people would know,
Right.
and people were just blown away. And I was very proud, to see that. In Canada, here in Toronto, there's the Karamas family from South Trinidad. They actually teach pan. They've got a school. They teach retirees. They teach kids from kindergarten up. So now it's becoming mainstream
Right.
in Canada very slowly in certain larger cities, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I myself, whenever I'm driving around here in Canada, I'm got my windows open and I'm blasting. Usually, like my favorite is Jit Samaru and the
Right.
Renegades.
Okay. Right. Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But
So
the
I'm
good
always
thing.
putting this music out in the air out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good thing is that now we have the steel pan not just as our popular instrument, it's actually our national instrument. And it's been acclaimed by the UN. We have the Steel Pan Day, World Steel Pan Day, which is August 11th every year. And being the national instrument of Trinidad, now we have responsibility and accountability. So the Minister of Culture has to actually open new doors and account every 2 years or so. I think it's every 2 years. He has to report to Parliament in terms of what new doors, what new initiatives, what new opportunities they've created for the steel pan. So hopefully it won't just be the one-offs like yourself out there trying to get the music out there, but going forward, I mean, we even put it on the coat of arms, right? So going forward, the whole government hopefully is not political party, but government moving forward, no matter who in power, will still continue to push and push and push.
And it's a good thing that we're doing that, because I see Germany and Japan, they want to claim it that they came up with the idea.
No, well, the thing is, we also got the rights, the geographic indicators. So
Yeah.
you could buy a steel pan from China, but it's an imitation steel pan. Just like you could buy imitation Nike, you could buy imitation handbag in China, no matter. You can't prevent those things. But we have the intellectual property. In terms of the intellectual property rights, we have the geographical indicators that once it's a steel pan, it has to be made in Trinidad and Tobago. And
Oh,
that's a recent
okay.
development. I think that was last year. So a lot has been going on in the steel pan that I've been telling people. My vision is that aside from Carnival, this month of August, where we have all these steel pan activities, is going to be one of the biggest tourism, drivers throughout the year for us, because it really is on the march. Then the steel pan is on the march.
So Frank is also in Canada in a different part than I am, but what's your exposure to steel band out there, Frank, in Ontario?
Well, where I worked before I retired, there are quite a few Caribbean guys, Trinidadians, and there's one fellow. He's quite a fan of steel band music. One of the things that we notice is that to record steel band music in the electronics that we have today doesn't seem to capture the same tone and the same excitement that we get from listening to steel band live. Has that been addressed in any way at all, to record it in special ways that it could reproduce the original?
There's no way you will never be able to recreate the energy that resonates off of the pan. 100%.
Yeah.
It's like for instance, people trying to create virtual reality apps for people who are way to experience Carnival. You can't put, no matter how good the technology gets, it will never be the same as being in Trinidad and smelling the road, the hot road, and smelling the pie woman on the road, and seeing and feeling and bouncing into somebody and getting the full experience. So the same thing with the steel pan. Panas would have done an album. I think that's still acclaimed as one of the best recorded albums, but that was on a Caribbean sound piece. And so you really, to record steel pan, you really have to have experts in terms of knowledge of acoustics, knowledge of mics, mic placement, and all the very technical things. But I'm not too sure. I can't speak for them. I'm not too sure in terms of the steel pans what they're doing individually. But you will never get the 100%, reproduction from feeling that reverberation of the pans hitting you in your chest. I don't think.
Yeah,
I don't think you'll get it.
That's true. I am with you on that, because I found that whenever I experience steel band in person, it actually integrates itself right into your heartbeat. It becomes a part of you.
Yes, and that is a part of my book as well, because in the book, how I position it is as though, not as though, from the research, this is what it indicated to me that I just put in the book. When the Tambu Bamboo, we had the Tambu Bamboo will attract hundreds of people on the streets. Everyone will have their followers and so. But only when the steel pan hit, when we get to what the steel pan, the first versions, and the bands were hitting the road with it, is a different frequencies, a different resonance, that it was, instead of hundreds of people, it was thousands of people now on the streets. I keep referring to it in the book in terms of unpoliceable crowds, which is then what was used for people to realize the power after the emancipation, that we have some strength out there, which was then leveraged for independence and so in the long run. But that feeling of the steel pan, that was so instrumental in creating the Trini identity and giving us that energy to move forward to independence. Even the steel pans they had songs, they were composing songs, and they were carrying people to vote for the independence. Marching down the band, everybody following the band, go to the polling station, vote, and then they go back. So it was very, very, very important. That's that resonance. That, as I said, that feeling that in your chest was bringing out just huge crowds, which was able to lead on to different things.
Now, Althea is in Switzerland. I'm just wondering, Althea, if you have any steel band close by where you live.
Some years back, there used to be steel pan players in Basel on the main road, especially around Christmas. And I think these are people from the Caribbean who are married to Swiss, and they taught their children and family members to play. And I think maybe as some of these organizers get older, then the younger ones are not so much interested in carrying on, what they were taught by their parents. But definitely, there have been steel band players here, and I think I wrote a poem about one Christmas, hearing the steel pan music that took me on a journey back home in memory and feeling and just hearing the music. Yeah, so it's probably everywhere.
Well, as a matter of fact, uh, in Canada, you'd find Trinidadians everywhere, including the Arctic. And
Yeah.
it was about 50 years ago, I was aware of this one guy was teaching in a school in the Arctic, teaching Inuit. The old name was Eskimo, but that's considered derogatory. So the Inuit. And here he had these Inuit guys playing pan up there. They had a small 5-man band way up in the Arctic.
Hmm. Well, when Helen Watley, who lives in Seattle, she's a bishop's girl, that moved out to Seattle in the United States. She talked about when she went into the city of Seattle at around Christmas time, there's steel band playing in front of Nordstrom stores. So it's drips and drabs, it's getting out there. So any other no, I think Motilal, isn't there a Panyard in Pina? Unmute.
Yes, we do have a Panyard in Pinal, and at one time they won South Panorama. I don't know if you remember Sunrise Junction, Sunrise Road, down the
Yeah.
hill, down Murera Hill there. There's a
Yeah.
big Panyard now, it's called Valley Harps.
Okay.
And Valley Harps has been around since in the 1960s. I remember Valley Harp. And I had a story not too long ago in one of my books called A Pan for Parvati, in which I explored the theme of an East Indian girl from a Hindu family playing pan. So yes, we do have uh, a pan there, and there's a big pan there now. Can't remember who's the sponsor now, but they're doing quite well.
Well, just before I left Trinidad in the 1970s, this just started to teach Pan in the schools because I was at Holy Name Convent at that time doing A levels. When they began in the Form 1, they started their first steel band. But in my parents' generation, it was almost like looked down upon. All you ever came across that way of thinking among the older folk who
Well,
pretended to be prim and proper?
if you remember the long time calypso, there used to be a calypso like this. And if your sister talking to a steel band man, the whole family want to break she hand, kick she out, knock out every teeth in she mouth. Stuart, you know that?
I don't know that specific rendition of the song.
In my day,
But I know the culture that a young lady should not be in a panyard. Remember, that was for those kind of people. It wasn't for civilized people like the rest of society. That was for those people.
And was more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they say if your sister talking to a steelman man,
Mm-hmm.
the whole family want to break she hand.
Yeah, it was frowned upon, heavily frowned upon.
Right, so it was frowned upon.
In my day in the 50s, it was looked down upon as below the norms of society to become.
I think if we Google, we would find out exactly who sang that calypso, and I think it was Blakey, one of them older fellas. Because, well, sometime today, when I get a chance, I have a presentation I want to make today about this same thing. But what I want to talk about, because Valentine just gone and Carnival coming. So I want to talk about love and Love and Marriage in Calypso.
Mm.
So later on, I suppose I would be able to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
if there are any other questions for Stuart, we'll come to the readings. I know Motilal, you have to leave at a certain time, so we'll get you to read first, perhaps. But any other questions for Stuart?
I know I'm interested to hear Stuart's presentation to us.
Okay. Well, we'll go
That
ahead
was
and
the presentation in terms of the importance of literature to culture.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, well, yes, because I didn't know how the conversation was going. So if you want to do that, we could do that now. That's perfect, actually.
Sure. Okay, you can go right ahead.
I'm just trying to raise the speed on this fan because the heat in Trinidad right now. I have the fan so far from me because I don't want it to be picked up in the microphone as well. So I have it far from me in the seat. So I'll now raise the speed a little bit. I hope it doesn't interrupt the audio. All right. We back? All right. So I actually just made a list because I really wanted to be a discussion to know what your thought as well. And I wanted to have this conversation just to reinforce the importance of literature to all of us, and society and to the entire world actually. So I'm gonna start. I made a little list, but let me just pick out the most important ones. Yes. Well, so for instance, it's okay. So it's the foundation block of artistic inspiration, basically. So you want to make a movie, you want to make a play, you want to do song. This all comes out of literature. You need the script, you need the screenplay, you need the playwright to write something for the stage. So that's just a basic one. So in terms of the importance of literature and culture, that's a basic one. Another one in terms of the preservation of culture. So you could pick up, let's use a horrible example, like let's say Gone with the Wind or something like that. You could still read the book or I guess watch the movie as well, but you could capture the essence of that time. I mean, you could see the technology they were using. It's not the cars, the vehicles we're using. No one there has a cell phone. You could actually capture, when you look back at it, you could really realize, okay, that was a time capsule captured. So whether it be Charles Dickens or whoever it may be, that's another thing. It captures and preserves history and traditions and societal values, because yes, the values may not be appropriate to the time you're looking back from, but it still will capture what the values were at the time, like it or don't like it. It will capture it. Another thing, let's see, is a catalyst for change, for societal and cultural change. Some people might read a book, get inspired, and all of a sudden they find passion and purpose in life, and they want to change some element of society. So it definitely has that function as well, and that response, or I should say. Let's see what else I have here. And you could also, if you all have any other things, you could also add it is a promotion of cultural diversity. Like, so for instance, like my book, my whole book is about Trinidad's culture. So when I promoted my book, I am basically promoting Trinidad and Trinidad's culture and our historical, our heritage, our whole cultural background. From the era of my book, which is from the end, close to the end of slavery to independence. So I try to capture that and promote that and show people this was also going on. To also in certain, okay, I'll use another. I like to use horrible examples, so bear with me. Remember when I think it was Ronnie McIntosh had a song called Ent, and then everyone in China was walking around saying Ent. So literature and these things, they actually could change the lingo and create new dialects and evolve and new forms of expression, which will then become that culture's. They will fall within that whole cultural, let's say, bag of things we do, our beliefs and attitudes and all these things. It will fall within that whole bag of our culture. So we could actually create and evolve it, and just through literature. And I would just go with one more. It strengthens community bonds. So for instance, like things like this, the book club where total strangers, will come together and read, so that interaction around a book could, result in cultural celebration, fostering community interactions and more of a collective identity, because of the book they read in that month, So those are just a couple of the notes I made. And I want to share it with you all just to reinforce the importance of this thing that you all love so much, well, we love so much, and how impactful it is, not just on us, but on society, culturally, historically. I watched a documentary once on, I watched it a long ago. I believe it was Afghanistan before the start of wars years and years ago, and it captured how Afghanistan was, how people used to dress back then. Another one would have been like Iran, where they watch the movies, the films, that it would have been small independent filmmakers, but it still captured the culture. Women dressing, not how they dress now, but reflecting what the cultural norms were at the time, what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable. You look at our old documentary on Yugoslavia, and you could see that Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore, but you could see what it captures it for historical, forever. So I'm getting excited. Sorry, my passion is kind of rising. So let me just leave it there, and I just want to touch on that and leave it up, and hear what your thoughts were really on it as well. Anything you all want to add as well?
For me as a writer, I always view my role not necessarily as trying to promote culture or promote any one thing, but holding a mirror up to the society of what I see now. I know some people, they want to tell what happened back then. They want to like talk about, and I'll let them talk about that within our group. But for me, at least, I like poetry like that. I do enjoy books of that nature where it just kind of holds it up. And that's what I try to do with my work. So, and there's a quote in they say if you don't like how you're portrayed, behave better. So that's my view on it.
Right, right.
I know Mutilal has a different view where he goes with his writing as well.
I want to mute my mic. Sorry.
You mentioned the word evolution, and I think that's prominent for those of us who live away from Trinidad. We can see changes in Trinidad that if you were living in Trinidad, you wouldn't be able to see it as readily, because the experiences we had in Trinidad before we left is still there, but in Trinidad, culture and other aspects have evolved. Even expressions. Last week when I mentioned I was talking to a friend on Facebook who is in his 40s in Trinidad, and I mentioned the phrase 4-day morning. And he didn't know what that was. He had to go and ask his father or his grandfather, I think. So things are evolving there as well. But we, as in a diaspora here, we're still living in the past when it comes to Trinidad. So same with the music and the culture as well. It's interesting to look at that evolution.
Well, I was talking to a friend about this morning, where there are different types of Trinidadians, I feel. Like there are Trinidadians who live here, there are Trinidadians who live abroad, and then we have another generation of Trinidadians who were born abroad, raised by Trinidadians, raised with, I want to say, a diluted form of the culture. And all they know really about Trinidad is the food and the music. Whereas the Trinidadian living here, I think we're more in tune to the politics and things like that. And the Trinidadians who migrated and they're living abroad, it's almost as it's like a time capsule, you know?
Well, my daughter, my daughter, who is 42, she's never been to Trinidad, and she's a writer, and she wrote a book. She wrote a manuscript recently. She was ashamed to have me read it because, according to her, there's some very spicy scenes in it. But eventually, she relented, and I read it, and I was quite impressed as to how she captured some of the characters were Trinidadians living in Canada, and the monologue or the dialogue she had among them was as if she was in Trinidad. And so I think interacting with the diaspora, the kids who have grown up in abroad that's never been to Trinidad, they do pick up a lot of stuff from us Trinidadians.
Yeah, because they're raised by Trinidadians.
Yeah, and then when we get together, we all talk, and just like we were back in Trinidad. So I asked her, if you go to Trinidad, you'll have to speak like Trinidadians. She said, "Well, I can do that." I said, "Like what?" She said, "Give me an example." She said, "Bonksman, Bonksman." Picked that up from Paul King's Douglas.
Well, that's the funny thing. There's this whole thing going on now in the news with Nicki Minaj, Trinidad Killer, and Marshall Montano, where they're having this, I guess, back and forth between them. And Nicki Minaj, who speaks American for the most part, came on and did a video, and she did it in a Trinidadian accent. And I don't know, it's just my personal view. I looked at that and I thought I'm so used to hearing her American accent. When I heard her Trini accent, I said, what? And I told my girlfriend this month, I said, she doesn't sound Trinidadian to me. But my girlfriend who lives abroad, she said, no, she sounds Trinidadian to her. So it's just this whole, I think, perception and culture intertwined. Mutilal, you were saying something?
Yes, we were talking about evolution of the culture, and in particular, we was talking about steel band and to some extent calypso. So I just want to refer to an article that was in the Express on Friday by a Trinidadian, Theodore Lewis, who is a professor emeritus at the University of Minnesota. And the title of the article was The Demise of Calypso. I'll just read a short extract because somehow I find that this related to what I might want to do a little later. But this is what she says. I believe that we have long forgotten what Calypso is about. We do not have Calypso tents anymore, and that is a telling sign. There is no critical mass of Calypsonians to form a brigade. There is no Calypso season, and there are no Calypso tents. And then he goes to talk about, we talk about the evolution of Calypso into soca. And this is what he had to say about soca. He said, but these days, soca has no content. It is merely a kind of music. And here is what he says. It is not a literary form. It is music with a distinctive beat, but there is no mystery to it. The soca singer has to pay homage mostly to the beat, not so much the lyrics. The singer really has no message, no story to tell. Soca singers couldn't care less about politics or particular local events. Marshall, Bungie, Patrice Roberts are not trying to enlighten us or amuse us or provoke us. They do not resort to picong. They are not trying to relate their take on national occurrences or events. No, they want us to dance and prance and whine, not to ponder and not to think. And this could take me right to, my presentation, because I was talking about a time when Calypso used to make us think. Okay, so I don't know if this might be a good time for me to do my thing.
Sure, if you'd like.
Well, I just wanted to make a brief comment, if possible, before I started.
Sure.
It was with regard to something Gosha said earlier. I just wanted to let you know it's not just people away that have that disconnect between the culture. A lot of people in Trinidad, for instance, we had the steel pan semi-finals last week Sunday, and the whole of North Stand was bought out by sponsors. And by 8 o'clock, right? Everybody gone home because they have work in the morning. BP officials, the big people had to leave. They had to go to work.
Yes.
The boss there at cafe 6 in the morning. The boss seen my hair drunk, so everybody rushed. So all the big bands performed to empty crowd. But yet, if you went in the drag, which is the where you pull the pans into the savannah, up onto the stage and pull them off, that was the most full I have ever seen it. I would even say 50,000 people outside there. But yet the North
Yeah.
Stand empty. So it's not just people away have that disconnect where it's just about the music and the food. A lot of people in certain echelons of society think the same exact way. They don't care about the substance of the culture, which ties back right what into Mr. Motilal is saying here. They don't care about the culture, the
Exactly.
substance of it. So I just wanted to throw that in before you started, because I know it connects you to them as well. So sorry about that. You can go ahead.
No problem at
No,
all,
that's
because
very
why
enlightening.
because that
Thanks.
sort of related to what I going to talk about. As I said before, this thing is, we say, love and marriage in calypso, and again we talk about culture and Valentine's Day. This is a culture that has been handed down to us by our colonizers, and which we appreciate and which we support so much, because I live in way down in the country, and every street corner there are roses selling for Valentine. And now that is it's near the carnival, and if you go down the road by the rum shop, everybody have a box outside blasting calypso. So in a way, I say that it's still hope for us, but I want to concentrate on a little. I want to look back a little bit. Gosha say I have a particular way of writing. I like to write about the past. Yeah. So here goes. Most people see calypso as social commentary because long ago it served the purpose of telling stories, relating news events, and criticizing the government, the upper class, and the politicians. Calypso was divided into two categories: the social commentaries, which had songs dealing with politics and community issues, and the humorous calypso, which told stories, real or imagined, with the intent of making the audience laugh. Today, I want to talk about a special type of calypso that comments on the passionate and sometimes mischievous relationships between men and women, the calypso of love, marriage, and betrayal that would make you chuckle and also provoke you to think. So let me go back a little bit. It was way back in 1937, sorry, a fella called Lord Carissa, and he sang, "It was love, love and love alone that caused King Edward to leave the throne. It was love, love and love alone that caused King Edward to leave this throne." And this is how he commented when King Edward of England gave up being the king so that he could marry the American woman Wallis Simpson, whom he loved and who was a divorcee. According to the rules in Great Britain at that time, she could not become queen, and he would abandon being king of England for his love. I suppose some of the older people might know what I'm talking about.
Or those that
Compare
watch the crown.
compare what King Radio sang in 1977 when his love abandoned him, when his woman leave him there. $500 friends I lost, which make me sell me cat and me horse. $500 friends I lost, which make me sell me cat and me horse. Don't you know? Matilda, Matilda, she take my money and run Venezuela. Matilda, Matilda, She take my money and run Venezuela. Well, the money was just inside my bed, stuck up in a pillow beneath my head, don't you know? Matilda, Matilda, she take my money and run Venezuela. You know, if we listen to the advice that Calypsonians give, we could save ourselves a whole lot of trouble, you know. Here the mighty sparrow, as he make recommendations about marriage in a calypso called Grandpa Advice. Two women in my life, one of them got to be my wife. Two women in my life, one of them got to be my life. Betty love me, but I love Myra. Going to explain to my grandpapa. What should I do? Who should I wed? Grandpa watched me and then he said, Oi, the one who you love never married to she. Is the one who love you, she go make you happy. Keep the one that you love on the side all the while. But the one who love you takes you straight down the aisle. Well, if you like good advice. Or this is how he tell us in to take heed in a calypso called No Money, No Love. Ivy pack up she clothes and leave because Johnny was down and out. All alone he was left to grieve. She had an next man down in so. She said openly, I really love you, Johnny, but you ain't have no money. So what will my future be? You can't love without money. We can't make love in hungry belly. Johnny, you'll be one I'll be dreaming of. You are my turtle dove, but Johnny boy, no money, no love. You know, Sparrow was real good at giving advice, you know. He said to look for a rich girl to marry. Don't study what people say. Here we put that in Mr. Walker. She ugly, yes, but she wearing them expensive dress. The people say she ugly, but she father full of money, oh Lord, mama, woy, woy. Good morning, Mr. Walker. I come to see your daughter, sweet Rosemary. She promised she go marry me. I know what I but waiting. I come to fix the wedding. After the wedding day, I don't care what nobody say. Cause every time I take a good look at she face, I see a bank book. Oh Lord, mama, woy, woy. Good morning, Mr. Walker. I come to see your daughter. You know, but sometimes you have to be really careful, you know, that you don't get trapped in this marriage business. Here we're going on with a girl called Melda. Again, my favorite Calypsonian Sparrow. Melda, oh, you're making wedding plans. Carrying the name to Obiaman. All you do, you can't get through. I still ain't go married to you. Did Melda get through? Well, people, go and Google this Calypso Classic and you'll find out. You know, man does feel the smart, but when they in love, they just get all smart easy, they just get to Tulbe. Here what happened to Teresa and Sparrow. You're worse than a dog, Teresa. Girl, you break my heart. This morning, you take my dollar. I know you're playing smart. This morning you come, we talk business quiet and soft. Every time I come by you, you make an excuse trying to put it off and you say, Sparrow, let me go. Boy, don't hold me so. Me mama go no. Sparrow, darling, wait till tomorrow. Well, by any Sparrow get a thing yet. You know, woman could real set up man when man in love. He does believe anything. A Guyanese Calypsonian named King Fighter come to Trinidad to sing in a Calypso tent. And he meet a girl and fall in love with she. Man, let me tell you the story in song. Only last week, Suki tell me she will follow me to BG. Now I set back and I ready. Hear the nonsense. Suki tell me, oh, you must consult Mama and then consult Papa. Comely we go, Suki, comely we go. If you encourage them, they go tell you, comely we go, Suki, comely we go. She said, King Fighter, I love you. I won't tell no lie. Comely we go, Suki, comely we go. But my daddy go vex and my nanny go cry. Comely we go, Suki, comely we go. Now I reach home to she father. He bring a pira, tell me bite her. Then he rain back as if he worried. Oh, milado, Suki shouting, you must consult Mama, you must consult Papa. Comely we go, Suki, comely we go. Now he pull out a revolver, then he asks me, what's the matter? Look, I take off like a donkey. If my jet plane couldn't stop me, oh, you must consult Mama and then consult Papa. Comely we go, Suki, comely we go. You know, I hear that King Fighter was the second man to walk on water, because he lived in Trinidad and he ended up straight in Guyana. So what I really wanted to highlight today, and I was reading Professor Theodore's article in that, as he said, the Calypso a long time. It's to tell stories, it's to cause us to think, it's to provoke us to, you know, to, put on the thinking caps and analyze. But what he's saying that the present evolution, the soca, doesn't make any sense. So that's my little bit for today, and thank you.
But to defend, sorry, move on, put on the camera.
Thanks, Musilal.
To defend soca, they have some storytellers in soca. They mightn't get the most airplay, they might have the most popular songs because the industry wouldn't really allow for that in terms of the competition thing. The your BPM had to be a certain amount, you have to have a certain amount of energy, There's a formula to the soca that becomes popular, but then there are the others that will really tell the stories in between. But something you said just now there before you started the whole your contribution was that the Valentine's Day came from our colonizers. And when they said that, that really triggered something that I wanted to already mention, going back again to the importance of literature and culture. I don't know if you could give me what is similar in all of these things, the La Jablesse, the Dwen, the Sukuya. I mean, is it really our history, or it all seems to me like French names? So is that French culture that we adopt as Trinidad culture, or is that our culture? Is it that the literature was so powerful, the contribution to our myth, our narrative as a country, that it just maintained over time? But there's the fact that all of them seem to have French names is just questionable to me.
Well, I am an old man, eh? So I like to hark back to the times as I say, we used to tell stories and all with our calypsos. But coming back to the carnival, when we used to have costumes, when we used to have these historical bands and all that. And I know that we have to move on, but these are the things that I feel that we losing um the culture, we losing the, how shall I put it, the inventiveness, the way we used to make these costumes, and is only bikini and beads now, for want of a better word.
I think the internet and social media has a lot to do with that. And I think as well, making Carnival a business has a lot to do with that. Because businessmen are always going to go for what sells, and the cheaper it can cost to manufacture, and the higher they can sell it for, the better for them. And I feel in terms of losing the culture in terms, it's TikTok and everything. The term going around now is big back, right? So that's when you're feeling like being greedy. And when I first heard it, I thought it was a local term, because I thought I heard it from my younger colleagues, and I was like, oh, okay, this is the local, a new local slang. And then I'm hearing it online, I'm hearing it on TikTok, and I realize I'm like, oh no, it's not local. We just adapted. So I feel like one of the things that's kind of watering down the culture is the fact that now in the avenue to create our own terms, while it's still there, there's so much more coming in as well. So it's competing with a lot more. If that makes sense. Heather, you could jump in and help me out with that.
No, with the whole globalization and everything being online, social media, everyone is being kind of forced into this one similarity. Everyone just similar. So it's all based on Western lingo and Western terms and jargon and slangs, and so, and it just trickle in. It's very hard for us. I used the example of ends earlier when we were going to end. But it's very hard for us to create our own thing, because, as I said, we're bombarded by this American, this Western, just bombarded every day, whole day, all day on social media, just on TV, just bombarded. So that, again, that's the importance of the literature, because we get to preserve and share our own stories. As was mentioned in the bio, I do podcasting, and one of the episodes I interviewed, well, myself and my co-host, we interviewed Paul Price, who's an actor from Trinidad who the Netflix on a couple different movies on shows on Netflix. And his thing is, your Caribbeanness is a superpower. You know, you can't try to out America an American. You can't try to outdo what out there. We have to bring what we have and exploit that. You know, because he even teaches Caribbean dialect to actors probably have a part coming up with it in a Caribbean accent, a Caribbean type of sound. And so he's teaching our culture out there. So it's very important. And we can't combat it because it's a bombardment we're facing, but we all have to just do more writing, do more creations that will promote and share our culture out there as well, to not offset, because again, we're a drop in the bucket, but for our own people to be able to resonate with.
But Stuart, with the Caribbean, I feel we have an additional pressure, because we are the term Caribbean. There's no country called Caribbean. There's no, and we are all sovereign nations. Yes, we're geographically close together, but each Guyanese is much different than a Trinidadian. A Jamaican their culture is much different than a Trinidadian. So it's almost as though, and when we go out there on the larger scale of the world, we say Caribbean because it gets you more clicks. People are more familiar and will gravitate towards Caribbean. But I feel like we have an additional thing to make ourselves unique within what is Trinidadian, what is Jamaican, what is Guyanese, what is Barbadian, as opposed to just, oh, Caribbean, and we're blending in.
Yeah.
We're
When
just putting it all in one.
the thing with the Caribbean is when you really check it, all of us in the Caribbean, most of us share a very similar story. And yes, because of the oceans in between us, we would have have some little one angle of different diversions, which have led further down the line to a huge diversion. But I believe we're still more similar than different compared to other somebody from Grenada and somebody from St. Vincent more alike than someone from St. Vincent and someone from Russia or someone from Saudi Arabia. We still would have some commonalities basically. And yes, I guess going on into even being Trini, and this will be even going down to another sub level. But for instance, an actor like we had Michael Sherry, he played a character in Shirley on Netflix recently. And if I'm mistaken, I don't think the character was a Trinidadian, but we use a Trinidadian to play a different Caribbean character because in the grand scheme, the audience or the international audience, the from the Caribbean, they don't know the accent difference between St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Lucia, Trinidad. They don't know, they won't really identify the differences. They just know you're from the Caribbean, and they will put us in that block. So I guess sometimes you just have to milk what you have.
Well, I think that's where it comes from mostly, because if you grow up in a country, you grow up in Trinidad, yes, Trinidad, Caribbean, but the Caribbeanness doesn't really come to the forefront until you go out to North America, you go to the UK, and then suddenly, some people don't know where Trinidad is. They all think you sound Jamaican because that's the thing they know, and at least back in the 90s. And
Trinidad
then
is in Jamaica.
you say Caribbean, right? To make it easy. So I feel like that's another layer that we have to deal with in terms of capturing our culture, because every Caribbean country culture is very unique. That's like saying, okay, it's North America or it's the USA, but someone who grew up in Georgia is much different from someone who grew up in New York or Boston, even if they're both of the same ethnicity. They may have similarities, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how it is in the Caribbean as well. I'm gonna let Heather jump in.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Heather.
okay.
Oh, and I have a question as well. Althea asked this a while ago. Did you travel to Ibadan to do research?
Yes, I did see the question. I did see the question, but I didn't want to interrupt and respond in a group while we were doing the message. But no, I did not go to Ibadan, but this whole project started during COVID. So there wasn't much traveling options at all. So it was all based on going through as much research as you could find online, whether it be historical documents, journals, documentaries, articles, and just trying to get a essence. But my book really doesn't have on Ibadan itself. It starts off there really mentioned in the prologue, but then the story really starts off in Trinidad. So it's really from Ibadan, but we don't really, the book doesn't really stay too long in that Ibadan story line. So it wasn't something that I really needed to get. It didn't play too much in terms of, I just need to understand more the culture, the religious aspect of it. But in terms of being there and seeing it, I didn't, again, it was during COVID, so I didn't have that option off the bat. And it didn't play that significant of a role where I needed to see certain things for myself. But the majority of all the research was done online during the COVID years. 2 years of COVID was done with the research and putting the book together. Yeah. There was another part to that question. What was the specific inspiration? Right, the specific inspiration was, again, during COVID, everyone was home. I was looking at Netflix just like 99% of everyone else. And I was looking at Vikings. That was hot at the time. So that was a certain culture. They missed their whole history in a package form for the world to take in, to celebrate their history and their culture, or at least what they want to sell and promote as from their culture. Then I was looking at samurai, which is a Japanese version of the Japanese history and culture. And then I was looking at barbarians, which was the issue of Germania. Well, Germany before they were Germania and how they came together to form Germany. And I was just asking myself, what would Trinidad Zone look like? So that is when I started to do research, and basically I did all the research, and to me, the data will tell the story. So I just need to create some additional context and characters for the story to flow, but it's really the data is really the crux of the book. And then what was the seed planted? I don't know if you want to just explain that part of the question a little bit better to me. Hello?
She's on mute.
Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah, I'm just curious as to what sparked, what particular thing, the moment this particular idea sparked your interest, or what, where did it germinate from?
Well, to be
Were
honest,
you listening to
sorry.
music, or was it something from childhood?
Yes.
Listening to a competition, or yeah.
No. Well, some personal family history story. Growing up, my grandfather, well, in Trinidad, they spend half a year, yeah, August holidays by one grandparent. Well, at least in my case, one by grandparent and then the other half by the other
Yeah.
grandparent, and all the cousins there and way lining and play.
Mhm.
So at my father's side, who was Barnabas Ram, unfortunately, who was also an author. He used to write poetry and so back in the day, and in Catholic news. So at his home, with all of the cousins, we'd be playing, and they always had these two family portraits on his by the TV and the setup and everything there. But they were the husband sitting down and the wife standing. This was a little child. I can't remember exactly how it was, but one was sitting, one was standing, and they had the ball and chain around their leg. And he always used to tell me this one here is my grandfather, this one is my great grandfather.
Mhm.
So subconsciously seeing that as a little, since I know myself, it all every day there you see the picture in front of your face, and you know subconsciously this is part of my story. And then on my mother's side, my grandmother, a character, rest in peace, was always used to say, we came from Madras. On that side, it was a Madras Indian. And through sexual violence, she always used to say, that's how we get a little color in the coffee. She always used to say that. That's how we get a little color in the milk in the coffee. That was her saying. So on that side as well, I always understood that it wasn't all, I had other things in my mind that the average, I guess, child might be understanding. I didn't even know if I even understood it at the time, to be honest, but just those subconsciously. And then I always like to do history. I always like to look at historical documentaries. And so, I always have a passion for trying to find out the why and so how things led, because we all think that we're born, and when we're born, that's how the world was all the time. I don't know, there was a time before and things came to how they are now. So in a nutshell, it was, I think, a combination of all of those things. Again, which would have been reinforced by watching all of these things during COVID. And my whole perspective on life is always plant seeds. So while everyone on the internet complaining, COVID at home, I was like, okay, well, now I have a chance to, let me see what I'm going to do. What I'm going to create now that after COVID done, what wave I could ride. So
Yeah.
that was generally it, as like, okay, well, yeah, let me see. And then when I started to do research now, I'll have conversations, because I haven't started to write or anything. I'm just doing research and stories hitting man. I'll have conversations with, like, barbershop talk with your friends, and it was always new information to people my age and younger. If nobody knows these stories, everyone will tell you, Chinese, we don't fight for anything. And I have to remind them, no, 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 no. Back, and I'll tell them multiple instances when Chinese say, okay, enough is enough. We will take things, but we'll always reach up to say, enough is enough. Time to come and burn downtown. Time to come and have the labor riots. Time to come and, and that's what I say. The Hills is always a counterbalance to Port of Spain. That all they could do, all they want, but just don't cross the line, because you just saw them come down from the hills and balance back off things, so there's a lot of things that just went into it, a lot of things that drove the process, I should say. I hope that was able to help you.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
when you approach the project, though, because I know some writers that I've spoken to, they approach the project with a very analytical view. One
Right.
of our author of the months did that.
Mhm.
And they knew they wanted to produce something. And I even had an author that I spoke to that had an endorsement deal with
Mhm.
her character in her book
Okay.
already, established, and it was just something she created. So it's almost as though it was just executed as like a marketing plan.
Mhm.
When you approach your project, did you approach it like that?
Yes.
In
So,
terms of you
sorry.
knew that you wanted to promote an aspect of Caribbean culture,
Mhm.
and you knew you wanted it to be pan and
Well, again, my day job is really business consultancy. So yes, this was a product which was planned and business plan and budget and marketing rollout strategy and demographic research and all of these things went into it. So for instance, I had to understand who is my target reader. So that's why I didn't have a 500-600 page book with footnotes and these things, because in 2025 and it had to get them to even read a 5-page book, a booklet, to actually pick up and read. So based on who I knew I wanted the audience to be, I made sure it was as easy for them to consume. I didn't want to give them any reasons not to read the book. So it's 100 and I believe 49 pages, off the top of my head. Yes, it's not a thick book. And even in those pages, it shows a little extra, a font a little bigger than it normally would have. So it's even easy to read. So I didn't want people to say, well, that font too small, it's hard to read. No, a nice, big, easy, clear font to read, not a million pages. You sit down within 3 to 4 hours and you could get the whole issue of Trinidad from slavery to independence. So I wanted to, that was the initial thing. So it had to appeal also to the younger generation. Again, our young people, we're not really into this reading thing. So that would have shaped a lot of the product which was created. The marketing research went into it first, and then now is, as you said, execution,
Okay, that's quite interesting.
Um,
Thanks for
Because I
sharing.
mean, I tell people, because I all of a sudden I'm getting clients now. People want me to help them with the book, and I have to explain to them, even if you're writing a child book, you have to know whether the child is 3 to 5 or the child is 8 to 9, in terms of the choice of words, in terms of the coloring choices and the imagery you're using. One will have to be more babyish, because even though it's children, they can't be so broad. They still have to isolate your demographic and try to give them what will be palatable to them now. Yeah.
Yes. I was speaking to an author about that because he works in he's an author, but he also works in media. So he does videography and stuff. So he deals a lot with scripts, and he asked me to read his work. And when I read his work, it was almost as though it was half script and half novel.
Okay.
So there was a lot of things when you read it, it almost read as though it was stage direction, as opposed to, as
And
opposed to
I guess that plays a
describing an
role.
environment.
Yeah, because even when I wrote my book, I tried to make it as visual as possible, because I wanted it to create a path for the other phases of the book, because it's really the book, and then try to execute a stage version and a play version of it, and then other versions of it as well down the line. So all of that thought went into me trying to create it to flow at a certain level of pace and a certain level of, I don't know if I was able to execute it, but vividness, and action and everything moving. I wanted the reader to be caught up in the whole action, so knowing that I had these other goals that I want the book to accomplish for me, that would have gone into the decision to how I would have structured certain things in it as well.
Okay. Well, we have an actor on the line, Willard. So whenever you're ready to take your book from
Mhm.
from the written word to the stage.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it is amazing. And we also have on our line Heather.
Okay,
Heather has recently published 2 books herself.
okay, okay.
So I'm going to let Heather jump in, ask
I
you any
mean,
questions. Heather, how was it for
Well,
you when you did your book? Did you go to the analytical route or did you do the
no,
100% creative?
I probably the creative route, but where Frank and I both probably, because we live in the diaspora, we are coming at it from a nostalgic point of view. Yeah, we're looking back. But getting, like last 2 weeks ago, we featured this book, my second book on Amazon. But in line with what you were writing about, the origin of the pan. This I'll just read you a little paragraph from a short story called Debbie and the Steel Band Man. She's a white woman that comes to Trinidad and she knows nothing about the Caribbean. And actually, this is referencing a Tony Curtis movie that was shot in Trinidad where they referred to pan as jungle music, which really pissed me off because it was really developed in the outskirts of Port of Spain. But anyway, which is an urban center, of course, that we all know. So she is telling this man that she hears this weird music at night and she thinks it's jungle music. He's a steel band man, very educated, but he sets her straight right away. Actually, it's not jungle music, replied Anthony patronizingly. It was discovered in an urban setting right here on the outskirts of the city in the 1940s when American ships discarded oil drums on the wharf, and our people were very innovative in creating the world's only musical instrument developed in the 20th century. This was partly due to the British outlawing drums made of hide among our people. Our musical traditions do go back to the Yoruba tribe in East Africa, from whence the majority of slaves were taken and brought here during slavery to work on the sugar and cocoa plantations. The Yoruba were not a jungle people, but had a system of government. The Greek and subsequently Western forms of government are all based on to this day. And just so he set her straight right away. So I meant East Africa, actually. I said East, but I meant West Africa. But yeah, so already, I had started to think about the origins of, as I discussed with you earlier, the musicality of peoples that came to the Caribbean and brought, it's almost like it's encoded in their DNA. And I alluded to the development of the pan that way.
yeah. Well, the term jungle music is very racially driven as well. Not just the fact that it was the urban or suburban or the rural, is really the fact that I came from the jungle people, to put it
Yeah.
mildly.
Except that my premise here is that the Yoruba were really more civilized than
Yes,
jungle people,
yeah.
because of they had that form of government
Yes, but no matter
already.
how civilized you are to certain people, you'll be jungle people. No matter, and that's one thing as well I put in the book. We gave up so many things in terms of the patois and all these different things to try and be accepted by class. I would never accept you. So no matter what you do, you'll still be jungle music. You
Yeah.
know that you could make money off of it. You will see corporate on board and doing the sponsorships and taking the nice pictures and so, but that's empty, that is shallow. That's why those things will be dying. But the heart of it, the real substance, every year, you go and see the Sailor Mass crossing. I could kind of guarantee 50 years from now, Sailor Mass will pass. The bees mightn't be there. The bikini and bees might be there, but the thing with the soul will still survive. The steel pan will still be playing, whether they have North Town or not. The ghetto will still be out there creating the real essence of what this whole thing is about. All the commercial things could just disappear, fade away, like dust, but the real thing will always sustain and continue.
And I think that's one thing in your book that I enjoyed was the fact that you saw this character that was the constant, because the story was told through his point of view,
Yes.
really. And around him was playing out these events. It kind of gave me a Forrest Gump kind of vibe.
Okay. That's the first time I
yes.
heard that one.
Yeah, because well, you know, in Forrest Gump, how he's going through his
So all this
story, but then you're
historical,
seeing
yes.
all the stuff happening in the background. So it
That's
kind of
true. It's
gave me
true.
that kind of
It's
vibe.
true.
And it was
Yeah.
one of the elements that I utilized to be able to like pinpoint where we were at, what time period we were at in the story.
Right.
So it was, I enjoyed that. I thought that was really creative. And
Sorry.
I enjoyed seeing our history displayed that way. So it's
Nice.
like, you know, you're going along the journey with this young man.
Well,
And
the
I didn't
reader,
realize Pan was so violent.
you didn't realize Pan was so violent. Well, I
I
didn't
mean,
put
I
much
knew
of the
it was
violence in the
like
book.
I knew
left
it
out
was
a lot of the
an
violence.
urban thing, but
Yeah.
the fighting, I thought it was an urban, you know, it was more like an urban love kind of thing. The whole fighting in between.
According to the
But I
research,
won't
there's
give
plenty
away too
times
much
over,
of the
woman.
story. Yes, the fighting in between. I was like, oh.
Yeah. A lot of action. Because
Yes,
it
a
was
lot of
everyone would have their
action.
yard, you know, Belmont people and Charlotte Street people and again is mostly
And
time it was all
I
from
almost
women, they said in
wonder
the
when I
interviews.
was reading it, taking it back to culture, if that aspect hasn't now just gone in, like just transferred over into like the gang aspect.
I wouldn't say transferred. What I would say is that when you look at it, again, everything I'm saying here is from the perspective of my book, right?
Yes.
Those same zones that they would consider hotspots were the same zones that was fighting for freedom after emancipation, which had to become criminalized because again, they're not falling in line with what we want them to be, you know, in terms of the societal battle. So after emancipation, is Trinidad going to be Eurocentric or is it going to be Afrocentric? We have so many African descendants in Trinidad and so few European descendants. So what's going to happen? And that is that battle which is still going on today. That's how you'll still see the rope around certain bands. And, you know, it's more that the masquerade as opposed to the carnival side, the Cambole element, you know, that separation. You know, we don't want to have too much Africa. Yes, your emancipation pass and you have the same rights to express your culture, but you're going to ban these things, you're going to ban these things because, yeah, we say we get your emancipation. Yes, we say you're free, but in as reality, we didn't know it. You know, again, in terms of what culture Trinidad going to have. And in that battle, that fighting for your rights from those criminalized zones, which fighting for their rights, you know, that just kind of continued to the point where we would say those are hot zones now, you know, but I wouldn't say the steel pan transfer into that. I would say, I guess it was just, I mean, the steel pan and those areas is kind of separated as well, you know, so there's one and if the steel pan coming out of the heart of the communities, out of the yards, you know, so I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it's interesting. I have another question for the group though, and for you.
Okay.
Going out of this, how do we, as writers, what are some things we can do as writers to really not only establish the importance of culture and literature, but what can we do with our own work to make it that it really sticks and it doesn't become some cliche? Because some people are tired of reading about, you know, oh gosh, another local story. You know, I know at one point everybody was writing poetry based on not everyone, but it was a lot of people writing poetry based on crime. And that was a big theme for a lot of spoken word poets and everything was, and you hear it, you're like, oh gosh, another one. And they kind of, so what can we do as writers? And this is for everyone in the group.
Well, let me just start quickly. In terms of the local stories, again, I refer to the interview I did with Paul, the actor. He mentioned it in the interview. All of these movies, we look at the classics, the Taxi, the Goodfellas, all of these are local stories. Just like Italian neighborhood stories in a certain specific neighborhood in New York, in the Bronx, Bronx State, you know, is a real local story. And that is what we're supposed to, given here, what he was telling me, you know, he was saying that is what we're supposed to be creating and celebrating our local stories because that is the only differentiator that we have now, our stories. And that's what we have to create a lot more of and push out to the world because that's what they do across there. And we think is it's because we're from outside, but it's really a local, isolated, tiny piece of New York they talk. The whole movie is about. So they celebrating their local stories and promoting it globally. And we need to do the same.
And I think as a writer, though, especially from a small Caribbean country, you have a couple of elements that kind of go against you in terms of the local slang and the language. You always have that moment in your book where you want to know, well, should I put something in the back? Should I put little asterisks and something, or should I just let the reader, figure it out? Because we've had to figure it out. But and then another thing is the Caribbean thing. Should I market it as a Trinidadian author, as a Trinidadian book? Or should I put Caribbean? Because Caribbean is more known. You might get more traffic if you put Caribbean as opposed to Trinidad. So those are elements that we fight against in terms of wanting to, represent culture, but then you have the business aspect of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I guess some way you could assist with that is in terms of the tagging of your content. You could tag Trinidad and also tag Caribbean. I know your title is one thing, and your main headline is one thing, but I guess you could try to do other ways, hashtags and these things to try and also, spread it to those other platforms and I guess groups, those entities out there.
Okay.
But it is a challenge. I mean, and even getting your money back from when you sell a book online is a challenge, because the whole orange economy from Trinidad, that transferring money back and forth, when you get a check from Amazon, you might literally have to get a check unless you have a US-based account or a PayPal or something set up. So once you're operating from Trinidad, yeah, a lot of challenges.
Yes, that's true. I'm gonna go to Frank. I don't know if he's there or I thought I saw Arlene, but perhaps I didn't. Hi, June, welcome. Heather, you want to take a stab? Oh, Frank, great, you're back. I want to take a stab at the question, Frank, in terms of how we could go about putting more of local culture in writing.
Well, I think you were mentioning whether to advertise it as or refer to it as Caribbean as opposed to Trinidadian. As the diaspora gets more and more prominent, each island is coming into its own, in where previously places didn't know about Trinidad versus Jamaica versus Barbados. So I think if we continue to say Trinidadian as opposed to Caribbean, it would simply add to again, using the word evolution, of our recognition in the diaspora. I mean, Toronto used to be a really just a WASP town, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. But now, the other day I went to Scarborough, to a shopping center, and a very strange thing I saw. I saw a white person walking around. So in other words, we're becoming more and more known, and people are becoming more and more familiar with the different aspects of the Caribbean. And I would say that to write about what Heather and I have been doing is writing about what we remember. And to a foreigner, I think they wouldn't be able to differentiate between the past and the present in Trinidad. We can, but not people outside the Caribbean. So I don't know, I would continue writing the way Heather has been writing, or the way I've been writing.
Yes, and I love Heather's title of her book.
Yeah, I learned something from that.
You mean the pecan pilau and pepper sauce? Yeah. Well, the next one is Cascadoo and Callaloo.
Cascadoo and Callaloo. Oh,
It's
I
all
like it.
food related, food based in title only. You know,
But there
Stuart,
is,
the pecan and pepper sauce, they were very spicy stories.
yes, yes. Well, we have to go into our open mic if there are no other comments on the importance of culture and literature. Stuart Fortney, I would love to thank you for sharing with us and having this discussion. I found it was quite interesting. And we're going to go into our shares. Now, Mutila and Heather, you guys are going to have to let me know if you already shared your pieces or if you still had pieces to
Well,
share.
oh no, I've got a little one here called Shanti Home for Carnival. She's living in the diaspora like me.
Okay.
And she's coming home for Carnival. So, but
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what my turn is. I don't have the schedule.
We only have a few people on. It'll be Althea, Mutilal, if he hasn't gone already, yourself, and then myself. So
Okay,
just
well,
four.
Althea's next, I guess, then, eh? All right.
Yeah. All right. So Althea, we will call on you to unmute. And Althea also said our stories come from the cultural cocoons we were wrapped in, which is quite true. And because we are a culture that moves and migrates and lives from here to there, I feel that cocoon is now blended with many various colors. Althea?
Okay, yeah. So on that note, I'm going to read three, I think four poems called Graveyard Sagas. And they come from this collection of poems called If Only the Dust Would Settle. And so this is from my experience growing up in the US Virgin Islands and Antigua, or Antigua, as they would say. So I'm sharing my cocoon, my cultural cocoon called the Graveyard Sagas. The first poem is called Tradition. The funeral is over. Men gather at a nearby bar, drink straight rounds of rum in honor of the dead, quench their burning thirst, and shovel pain under raucous laughter. They were at the graveside in their best black suits, held hats to their hearts, mopped away floods tearing down women's faces, picked and held up those bowled over by loss. They bore the coffin through the town, and each shop closed its doors as the procession approached. When the black line snaked down Main Street, the dead stared at life the last time for memory's sake. We said our goodbyes from behind closed doors and gaps in lattices, and everything was still, quite still. The second poem from Graveyard Sagas is called At the Well. No one ever heard buckets gliding into the abyss. No one ever heard the splash. They are weighted down, rock heavy, hauling up. Then something grudgingly gives away. After the prayer to the dead is said, pails glide swiftly upwards. People scurry round graves, The only sound is the flip-flop of slippers on heels. Basins balanced on heads, water dripped and trickles and spill onto shoulders. To the brave who pull the buckets up from the center of the earth, they hold a soothing water. If the spirit allowed, they would trudge to the top of the craggy hill, basin still 3/4 full. And that is a memory from childhood. I remember my older brother having to go, him and other people, they would go to a well in a graveyard and collect their head up a hill. A third poem from the Graveyard Sagas, West Indian Wisdom. Don't ever point at a graveyard, the old women said. Bite your finger quick before it rot and fall off. So we never walked past them. We dashed, skinny legs colliding with gravelstone and each other. Hearts hammering, hands balled in fist, embedded in pockets or pinned to our sides, praying they wouldn't slip out under a spell and point. Out of danger, we counted 2 hands, 10 fingers, felt fear run its course. Thanked God, then nursed our bloody knees. We tell our children when they grill us about scarred kneecaps. You got to bite your finger before it rots and fall off. Run. Okay, the 4th graveyard poem, Gathering Place. Lazy, sleepy Sunday. Goats and sheep bleat in the dry pasture just because they can. From the hilltop, they are brown and white fluff dotting the ground. The graves' gray stones scattered on yellowing grass. The trees above them wail in the wind. Roots cradle a dead dynasty. In the pasture, children climb the creaky steps of a crumbling house with flapping shutters, peep at the jumbies rumored to live inside. But jumbies no longer roam the grounds, no longer muscle in on new territory, nor defend old turf. Too much dazzling light, too many roaring airplanes, too many drive-by shootings have shattered the quiet, have crushed the bravado of the dead. Okay, so that's sharing part of my childhood or cocoon or culture that I grew up in. And I'm sure you have, it's quite similar to Trinidad and other Caribbean islands. Okay, thank you for letting me share them.
Thank you, Althea. Thank you. And I believe I have them. You sent them to me, so if anybody wants them, or if you broke up a little with the second to last poem.
Oh, should I read it again?
Sure.
Okay. Hello?
We're still here.
Okay. No, I asked if I should read it again.
Oh, sorry, perhaps I was muted. I said sure.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
please.
Okay. Okay. It's called Gathering Place. Gathering Place. Lazy, sleepy Sunday. Goats and sheep bleat in the dry pasture just because they can. From the hilltop, they are brown and white fluff dotting the ground. The graves, gray stones scattered on yellowing grass. The trees above them wail in the wind. Roots cradle a dead dynasty. In the pasture, children climb the creepy steps of a crumbling house with flapping shutters, peep at jumbies rumored to live inside. But jumbies no longer roam the grounds, no longer muscle in on new territory, nor defend old turf. Too much dazzling light, too many zooming cars, roaring airplanes, too many drive-by shootings have shattered the quiet, have crushed the bravado of the dead. This is inspired by my dad used to say when he was young, you could see the Jumbies and the living, they all walked around the village and you could see them walking around. And then he said when it became very noisy, when motor cars came and airplanes came, it was too noisy. And so it drove the dead away and they went underground sooner than later. So you can no longer see them now because it's just unbearable and too noisy.
Thank you for sharing and thanks for reading again. Any comments?
Well, there is a similarity between the Virgin Islands and Trinidad. You mentioned about pointing in the cemetery and
Yeah, pointing your finger, yeah.
Yeah, when I was a little child, I was quite a bother to my older sisters, and we were walking through the cemetery as a shortcut. And I happened to point, and they scared they scared the daylights out of me by telling me all these terrible things that were going to happen. And the only way to break the spell was to bite your finger. And so I started to bite my finger, and they'd say, harder, harder, harder. I think I almost drew blood.
Yes, I love the selection of those pieces. I will give our featured speaker, Stuart, would you like to share anything on the pieces?
Well, I was just thinking again back to, are we preserving these things culturally? Because I'm not too familiar. I'm not too sure if anyone of a certain age demographic in Trinidad familiar with these, let's say, old time ways, you know. But it's a changing thing where we're losing a lot of what we were, you know.
Yeah.
these
Oh.
things are gone. So that's again the importance of keeping these things alive for these stories.
Yeah, well, we do have quite a few members in our group that specifically write just about that.
Right. Okay.
So to keep
Okay.
it alive, and
Keep it
that's,
alive.
yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah. Well, we will go ahead to Heather. If
Oh,
to
yes, I'm
go
all
ahead.
set.
Yes.
Yes. Well, this is with the upcoming carnival season. I wrote a little carnival thing here, and it's supposed to be funny. And Frank, this is where I asked Motilal about Bamsi. Anyway, here it goes. 5 years now, Shanti working in foreign, and she never got a chance to go home for carnival. Every time she put in for holiday, some senior employee put in before she. Winter is the prime time all them white people hot to go down south and lie down in the scorching sun just to come back and show off their tan. Look how brown I am, they're exclaiming, all the while putting down their permanently brown fellow employees. Well, this year Shanti wangled just a few days for carnival. She get a brainwave. She decided to play mass. She emailed her friend Gloria back home and sent she $1,000 for a costume in the Alvin Saladin Zulu Warriors band. The costume seemed scanty in the photos, but it was the only one she could afford. Send the costume home by mommy, and I go get it when I come home, she told her friend. And make sure it wrap up good. You know how mommy does Marco. Well, Shanti land up in Piaco before Friday, before Carnival. From the time she land is fed. Gloria picks she up and they go on by Sammy Lounge for a few drinks. Then they end up by Beatty's Baji and Baigan Bistro for doubles. Girl, the double station sweet too bad. You know we can't get anything like this where I live in behind God back in Canada, Shanti said. They drive away a little bit and then they're going home by Mommy house. The next day, Shanti and Gloria trying on their costumes for the Zulu warriors. Santi, she see a headband with two long string hanging down with feathers and pieces of bone. There was even a spear to hold. Shanti take out two little pieces of cloth from a plastic bag. One looked like a slingshot. What is this? She exclaimed. Look how it's so small enough it fit in a Ziploc sandwich bag. It was a piece of animal print cloth the size of a scarf to tie around her breasts, and a slingshot thing, which was a thong, a triangle-shaped covering for her front, and a strip in the back connected to a slight waistband. You mean my whole Bamsi on show? You bet it was a man who designed this, Shanti said. Is all you could get for $1,000, Gil, said Gloria. Mommy can't see this, Shanti said, but it was too late. Mommy burst into the bedroom door. What is this? She shouted. What is this I see in here? That is costume. You better don't think you're leaving this house in that. Mommy was livid. Although Shanti was a little uncertain herself, she dug her heels in opposing Mommy. I'm a big woman. I can wear what I want, she countered. But you're inviting some sweaty man to wind up on you, girl. Even them street girls down by Curab Junction don't expose themselves so. Mommy was vexed, but Shanti was not bothering with her. They didn't even have a place to hide a key or put a bottle of water to drink, Mommy weakly observed. In my day, decent women did not even play mass. Well, it's different today. Lady doctor and lawyer playing mass regular, said Shanti. Carnival Monday, Shanti and Gloria end up in the band. They well jump up in Sando. Shanti was shy at first, self-conscious about her Bamsi hanging out, but she get used to it quick. On Carnival Tuesday, they jump up in Port of Spain. They go on up Charlotte Street, round Memorial Park, and into the savannah for the parade of bands. As the day wore on, Shanti felt more and more comfortable in her costume. The day was so hot, at least she was half naked enough to pick up a little breeze. And with the rank and file in the same state of semi-nakedness, she felt less conspicuous. After the band jumped up across the stage, they turned down the familiar route on St. Vincent Street. Around Green Corner, the sidewalks were crowded with onlookers, some sitting on plastic chairs they brought for greater comfort in watching the spectacle of the bands parading down the street. Tanti and Gloria were swaying away to the steel band rhythms. The sound was sweet, sweet. What happened next was like a comedy of errors routine from a television show. The Zulu spear Shanti was carrying hit a Jack Spaniel nest tucked under a low-hanging eave of an overhead roof line, shattering it. It fell onto a vacant chair on the sidewalk at the very moment that Shanti, surprised by the buzzing around, swung around, losing her balance, and coming to a plop right down on the nest. One could imagine the scene, and the cries of pain on her bare Bamsi as it became covered by stings. It swelled up big. Here, let me rub it for you, some fresh man suggested. Haul your tail, Shanti countered between sobs. It don't look like you could haul yours anywhere, the man said laughingly as he continued jumping up. Carnival came to a quick end for Shanti. That night, Shanti had to listen to Mommy endless quarreling. And I tell you not to expose yourself so? Worse could have happened, eh? You're lucky it's only Jack Spaniel would bite up your Mamsie. Well, you know the saying, who can't hear go feel. Mommy was not sympathetic in the least, although she did give Shanti some calamine lotion. Next day was Ash Wednesday, the traditional day of repentance. Shanti had to sit down on her sore Bamsi on the plane for hours flying back to Canada. She even had to ask the stewardess for an extra cushion. All she could think about the whole way back was the words from the 1940 Lord Blakey Calypso, that refrain of repentance, never me again to jump up in a steel band in Port of Spain. And that was Shanti's first visit back to Trinidad since she gone foreign. The end.
Thank you, Heather. It certainly reflected carnival and culture with going from the half-naked costume. If Shanti was playing Sailor Mass, she would have been covered.
Exactly.
Any other comments? I wanted to say, Willard had said about Althea's piece, I missed it. A very beautiful Althea. And Althea says, what messages are we sending the younger generation by parading in these scanty, almost nude costumes? Showing my age, LOL.
Mhm.
Any comments?
I enjoyed it. It was hilarious. And what I liked as well is again using our jargon and trying to incorporate, finding that balance between how we speak and what could be understood by the wider audience. You know, the way the choice of words, the phrasing, just the lingo. You could know, it was written by a Trinidadian.
Yeah.
And that is what I liked in it as well.
And I live
And
in the forest for 50 years now,
yeah, but they didn't forget.
Didn't forget.
Yeah, but the
Frank,
question
I
is
see you
about
laughing,
QREP.
boy.
I didn't understand the QREP. Why QREP gets singled out for the ladies?
Well, I hear that all the prostitutes hang around Curtin.
Yeah, well, I know exactly where they're because they about 2 minutes away from where I grew up. They're at the bottom of my street. But so I want to know why didn't use Murray Street? Why you have to highlight my area? I
But
mean,
you know what I like about Heather's characters? She writes so little about the character, like the mommy character. She writes so little about the mommy character, but you've seen her in print. Like you have an vision of that character.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Very-
I had a mother like mommy. Mommy would be vexed about every little thing.
Well, Stuart, maybe mommy didn't grow up in town. Maybe she grew up in Kiran.
Yeah, I don't like it putting QREP on glass like that, man. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Well, I'll change it to Arrow Peter Avenue.
Murray Street. Everybody know Murray Street.
No, don't change it. Don't
No, don't
change
change it. I
like
just
it.
played with you. I just played with you.
Frank, what do you have to say for that?
I'm shocked. I'm embarrassed. No, it's amazing, amusing as usual, and I'm finding that I'm 3/4 the way through your book, and I keep a wicked smile on my face all the time.
Yeah, well, the only thing is there are a few little errors that Harold didn't pick up on.
Yeah.
I pay him to proofread, but you can't do spell check because it does, if the
Yeah.
word is spelled correctly but in the wrong context, it
Yeah.
won't pick it up. So you'll find a few little things like that. But anyway,
I've been documenting some of those to send back to you.
yeah.
Well, it said, haha, agreed. I enjoyed that, Heather.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Cynthia, do you have any comments?
I think Althea has a comment.
Althea?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed it very much, but it's very much a on how it seemed that costumes that displayed, that told a story and displayed tradition, are going away in favor of these almost nude, people and men and women gyrating in the street, and children are there looking on. As I said, I'm showing my age because once someone posted a picture of Carnival and the people gyrating on each other, and I made a comment, and I was attacked by a bunch of people. I was attacked by a bunch of people for my comments, you know, and but it seems to be the accepted norm now. So Heather, you're just writing about the reality, sadly so.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's why I gave her a costume like that, because that seems to be the trend, but it wasn't like that when we were growing up. The costumes
Yeah,
really, it told a story, as you said, they were more innate.
yeah,
And now everyone tries to get away with as skimpy as possible, and they're not really telling a story with the costume. They're leaving nothing to the imagination, in other words,
yeah.
Yeah. So that her punishment was she got stung by the bees.
Back in the day, whenever they had a scene, like a young girl dating or going all the way or whatever, there would always be something dramatic about it. It was like always those after school specials. Right after something happens. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead if there are no other comments. Oh, Heather, you're a tough one to follow.
Well,
But this is called Rain, and I was looking through my pieces for something that I thought really captured our culture. Rain. On high streets, the rain came down with a vengeance. God washing away their sins, Granny would say. It was never her sins or we sins. It was always your sins or they sins. Not wanting to huddle under the overhang with the mass of sweaty sinners, still getting lashed with God's blessings, I dashed across the road and took my licks. I escaped into RIK bookstore. The AC hit my wet shirt and gave me a chill. You're looking for debt, Granny whispered. Hot to cold and your head wet too? You go get sick. You go get sick. Ignoring her threats, I headed for the stacks. I love spending my time searching for a cheap find, and the rain gave me reason to meander and ignore my Saturday's errands. He approached without a sound. Well, you looking like a ray of sunshine in all this rain. This black man with a heavy Nigerian accent, smiling with a wide, toothy grin. He too was escaping the rain, yet couldn't resist saying hi to me. Running from one storm into the next, eh? Granny whispered. I smiled but felt trapped. The rain kept me imprisoned. Excuses made, I moved to the cooking section. Resenting his attention and the frosted glossy covers, he came again. Sugar for the sweet. You will make a man diabetic. He laughed, a full, deep laugh. That was loud. No one looked up. Granny fumed. Don't trust them man and them. Look how he nasty to laugh so loud in a bookstore. Them people always looking for something. He offered me a business card and I surprisingly took it. He was only in Trinidad for a few days. Are you from America? Are you from America? He confirmed he lived in LA, but traveled more often than he stays home. I escaped to the local section, not wanting to offend, still needing to escape. A glance that I felt was stolen. He found me again. You must stop following me, or I may have to marry you. he said with a Cheshire grin. I noticed his height for the first time, how he towered over me. I thought of what Granny would say if he were to come to our home and ask my father's permission. Again, I danced around small talk with a smile and squeezed by to the next shelf. If I was from the area, he would love for me to show him around. Of course, he would pay for it all. The rain gave ease, and I escaped with an excuse me, smile, walk by. Out the door, Granny started in. Well, girl, you real stupid. Imagine if he welty. The steam from the asphalt dissolved the coolness from which I came. I pulled his card from my pocket, and the answer came on the first ring. We would meet again. Granny took a turn. Ooh, he gonna kill you! As it started to drizzle, this time I let the rain kiss me softly as the vendors began another retreat. Let the rain wash away them sins, I thought. My sins are my own. Any comments?
Well, I love Granny's commentary. So their way of giving their warning and telling us to be cautious and giving us advice, and yeah, and Granny plays an important role there.
Yeah.
Flirting in
And
the rain.
She wasn't with her. It was just in her head. Granny's just in her head, to be clear.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I actually got a flashback of being with both, well, at sometimes my granny and sometimes my great aunt when after school, on the way home, might pass in Kirpalanis or something. And that, as I said earlier, my granny was a character. You'd hear all this talk like, all them women is piranha. You had to be careful of them. And always that granny, I guess in your side, is she's giving the female advice about the guys, but I was listening to it and thinking about how my God used to speak to me growing up and be careful of that woman, they will take everything, this, whatever stories. That she might.
I thought that was, I wanted to play the both sides too, because when she left the store, it was like, but if he wealthy, you miss the man of your life. So it was always two sides. They, if anything ever happened, they always had a dream. They always dream it from before. But they only tell you they dream it from before after the bad thing happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They play the game. they use the experience against us.
But Gershta, I was kind of wondering what the guy was thinking, because his remark was I might have to marry you,
Yeah.
so you kind of
But
wonder
with the guy, I wanted to capture sort of the Trinidad saga. I don't know why I made him Nigerian, honestly. I think I don't know. Maybe I may change that. But I wanted to capture like the sweet man
Yeah.
that you write about. The sweet man.
Yeah.
Cynthia, any comments?
Only that you had given me something, but apparently you've forgotten.
Yes, I didn't know if you wanted to read still or not.
My comment before reading it would be to say that this now carries us way back. We've come forward to what's going on now, but my very short passage that you sent for me will take us way back. It's very short, so I can just read it if you wish.
Sure, of course. And I think that's a lovely way to end the session. We went
Thank
back, we went forward, and now we're going to end with a reflection of our culture.
This is just from our old friend History of the West Indies by Alistair Macmillan, Nelson's West Indian Readers, compiled by J.C. Cuttridge, so you know how far back we are going, 1980 something. Trinidad, Airi, Land of the Hummingbird by Alistair Macmillan. Those who eat the cascadura will, the native legend says, wheresoever they may wander, end in Trinidad their days. And this lovely fragrant island with its forest hills sublime well might be the smiling Eden pictured in the book divine. Cocoa woods with scarlet glory of the stately immortelle, waterfalls and fertile valleys, precipices, fairy dells, rills and rivers, green savannas, fruits and flowers and odors rich, waving sugarcane plantations, and the wondrous lake of pitch. Oh, the bocas at the daybreak! How can one describe that scene? Or the little emerald islands with the sapphire sea between. Matchless country of Irie, fairer none could ever wish. Can you wonder at the legend of the Cascadura fish? That's it.
Beautifully read. Thank you so much. I would
Yeah.
ask for comments. Would any comments?
I always enjoy that piece. And I'm going to cite it in the introduction of my book that's going to be called Cascadoo and Callaloo.
I have
Okay.
I have all the books from introductory to standard 5, I think, or 6, whatever it goes up to. I'm trying to get my granddaughter to. I'm trying to get my granddaughter to be interested in it, but I think she's too young yet.
Mhm. That's it. Thank you. All righty. I
Okay.
believe, thank you, Frank.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
if there are no other comments, I believe we have come to the end of our session.
Okay. I'm down to 1% here, so I'll see you guys.
Okay,
Bye,
well,
Frank.
thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.
So,
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the time on the conversation.
Thank you
yes.
for being here, Stuart. We
Good-
appreciate you.
You're
And
Okay.
welcome.
thank you for sharing.
Good
Thanks.
night, everyone. It's 8 p.m. here.
Good afternoon.
Good night, Sophia.
Thank you very much. I
Okay.
enjoyed the session.
Thank you. I
And
enjoyed it
I'm
as well.
looking over the culture and the literature, the importance of literature.
Yes.